You know those sounds that just get under your skin? A pen clicking over and over, someone chewing with their mouth open? But what if those little annoyances weren't just annoying? What if they triggered genuine rage or panic? Well, for millions of people, that's a daily reality. It's a condition called misophonia. And today, we're going to get into the fascinating science behind this very real hatred of sound.
Okay, so first, let's start with something we can all relate to. What do you think is the single most annoying sound in the world? I mean, for most of us, nails on a chalkboard is the classic, right? But what does science actually say is the sound that makes humans cringe the most?
Well, here are the top 5 contenders. And it turns out, a knife scraping on a bottle takes the top prize. Yikes, I can just feel that one. But here's the thing. For people with misophonia, this is just the beginning. The sounds that can ruin their day are often much, much quieter.
So here's our game plan. We're going to break down what makes this condition more than just a pet peeve. We'll look at the science of why certain sounds make us all cringe. Then we'll dive into what's happening in the brain. We'll even touch on a wild theory about mirror neurons, look at the genetics, and finally, talk about where we go from here.
First up, let's make one thing absolutely clear. We're talking about something way beyond simple irritation. This is a journey into full-blown emotional overload. The official name is misophonia, which literally translates to hatred of sound. And the key thing to understand is that this has nothing to do with how loud a sound is. It's all about the intense, immediate emotional reaction it causes. We're talking about a sudden spike of anger, anxiety, or even disgust, all triggered by sounds most of us would barely even notice. And it's really important not to confuse misophonia with another condition, hyperacusis. Think of it this way. Hyperacusis is a physical problem. It's like the volume knob on the world is stuck on max, and normal sounds are actually painful to your ears. Misophonia, on the other hand, is purely an emotional reaction. A quiet sound of someone chewing isn't physically loud, but for a person with misophonia, it can feel like a personal attack. Now, you might be thinking this sounds incredibly rare, but get this. A 2023 survey found that nearly 1 in 5 people, 18.4%, have significant symptoms. That is a staggering number of people who are silently struggling with this, many of whom don't even know there's a name for what they're experiencing.
So let's zoom out for a second. What is the deal with those sounds that make everybody squirm, like nails on a chalkboard? Well, the answer lies in the really cool science of how our brains actually perceive sound.
Check this out. These images are called spectrograms, and they're basically a way for us to see sound. What scientists discovered is pretty wild. The most universally hated sounds all share a similar visual fingerprint. All their sound energy is crammed into this one specific frequency range, right between 2,000 and 6,000 hertz. There's a measurable, physical quality to cringe. But why that specific range? Well, it turns out our own bodies are in on it. The physical shape of the human ear canal is naturally designed to amplify sounds in that exact same frequency zone. And here's the kicker. You know what else falls right into that sweet spot? A human scream. So, the leading theory is that we are evolutionarily hardwired to have a negative reaction to these frequencies. They're a primitive danger signal. Okay, so that explains the universal cringe. It's a reaction to the physical quality of the sound. But misophonia is a totally different ballgame. It's not about the pitch or frequency, it's about the meaning and source of the sound. So now, let's look at what's going on with the brain's internal alarm system. I want to introduce you to a part of the brain called the anterior insular cortex, or the AIC. The best way to think about the AIC is as your brain's bouncer. It stands at the door, scanning the crowd of incoming information, and decides what's important enough to get your attention and an emotional response. It's the heart of the brain's What Matters Right Now network. So here's what happens in a misophonic brain. First, a trigger sound is heard. Let's stick with chewing. Second, brain scans show the AIC goes absolutely haywire. It lights up with way more activity than it should, basically screaming, "Red alert, this is a major threat." And third, that false alarm triggers a full-blown physical fight or flight response. The heart starts pounding, you break out in a sweat. It's like having a car alarm so sensitive that it goes off every time a leaf falls on the roof. But that's not even the whole story. There is another absolutely fascinating theory that suggests the reaction isn't just a faulty alarm, but something that feels way more personal, like the sound is literally invading your body. Listen to how neuroscientist Dr. Sukhbinder Kumar describes it. He says it makes them feel like the sounds are intruding into them. It's not just that the sound is annoying out there. For them, it feels like it's happening inside their own body.
So how is that even possible? It might be because of something called the mirror neuron system. See, when we watch someone do an action, parts of our brain fire as if we were doing it ourselves. Well, in people with misophonia, this system seems to go into hyperdrive. When they hear chewing, the part of their brain that controls their own mouth and throat becomes overactivated. Their brain is essentially being forced to simulate the action, and that involuntary mirroring feels like a profound and uncomfortable intrusion. Okay, so we've got an overactive brain alarm and a hyper-mirroring effect. But why does this happen to some people and not others? Well, the next piece of the puzzle might be found in our genes.
This is a huge breakthrough. A recent study found genetic links between misophonia and other conditions. As you can see here, researchers found shared genetic risk factors with things like anxiety disorders, PTSD, and even tinnitus. Now, to be clear, this doesn't mean they're the same condition, but it strongly suggests that there might be a shared biological sensitivity, some kind of wiring that makes certain people more vulnerable. This is a game changer for future research.
So after digging into all this science, the physics, the neurology, the genetics, what does it all mean for the millions of people living with this every day? Well, it means hope, because the more we understand the why, the closer we get to finding the how to manage it.
And because we can pinpoint what's happening in the brain, we can develop targeted therapies. Things like behavioral therapy can help people manage their reactions. Sound therapy can help gently desensitize the brain over time. And even simple tools like white noise machines can offer relief by giving the brain a safe, neutral sound to focus on instead of the triggers.
But honestly, perhaps the single biggest thing the science does is provide validation. For decades, people with misophonia were dismissed, told they were just being dramatic or making it up. This research is definitive proof. It's not a personality flaw. It's a real neurological condition with a biological basis. And that changes everything.
Understanding this science really shifts our whole perspective. It moves us away from judgment and towards empathy. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Knowing that an everyday harmless sound can feel like a genuine physical threat to someone's brain, how can that change the way we listen to and support the people around us?